Hey everybody, Levi from Amara Massage Therapy and Wellness here in Fort Collins, Colorado. Thanks for joining us again for another self-care video series episode. We've covered a lot of interesting things in the last couple of videos, and we got a lot of great responses from people. So we thought we'd kind of start continuing putting out some more videos. Today's video is kind of introducing the topic of low back pain. Low back pain seems to be something that the vast majority of us will experience sometime in our life. So hopefully this video might be helpful for you, for those of you out there who are experiencing some kind of low back pain, perhaps even chronic low back pain, i.e. recurring back pain that kind of comes and goes throughout your life. Personally, I've dealt with some low back issues, and I still do to this day. But I've found a bunch of kind of strategies and techniques and stuff that I employ in my self-care routine that has really made some really huge, positive differences just in my specific case. And the things that I'm going to share with you, and that I basically share in all my videos, are just kind of my personal take, and then the things that that I have incorporated in my self-care routine that have really helped me. So I don't know if it'll help you, but if you want to give it a shot, feel free to. Just remember that anything that you do in here, it should be pain-free, and it should feel therapeutic, and not anything that's like extremely painful or anything like that. That definitely shouldn't be in that avenue. So maybe to kind of introduce some of my strategies for dealing with my low back pain. It's kind of a multifaceted thing. There's not just one kind of strategy to employ that has worked for me. I've kind of found that it's kind of like this kind of holistic way of looking at this low back pain that has given me the best results. So we'll talk about things like your relationship and your view or your filter on pain is a really big one. Yeah. And then things like habitual movement patterns that may not be serving your low back very well. Maybe address those in another video. Things like trying to do some soft tissue work directly on the area that you're experiencing pain, and then stretching areas upstream and downstream from where you're experiencing the pain. And that's kind of maybe a counterintuitive view, but I think it really works wonders for people that are dealing with this stuff to not just focus on where the pain is, but addressing kind of the body as a whole to kind of help alleviate certain areas of the body that you might be experiencing pain. And it's not always the areas that you work on that are most effective for you may not be where you're experiencing the pain, as in my case that is very true. I find that stretching the lower body, like the hips and the legs, really has a drastic beneficial effect on what's going on in my low back. And I found that if I spend a lot of time just directly stretching the low back and working on the low back, I don't really get great results. Because again, all these tissues in my lower body, if they're tight and they feel restricted, they're not allowing me to move freely in the hips and the legs. Well, all that tension has to go somewhere, and it often goes into my low back. So so today's video, maybe just to kind of give you maybe 2 tools to work on. There's a lot of stuff that I just kind of spewed out at you, but I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of simplify each video, give you 1 or 2 tools to work on. Today, we're not going to talk about the habitual movement patterns or your relationship to pain and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll just do maybe one soft tissue technique to directly address the area that you're feeling the pain in the low back. And then we'll do a stretching technique that addresses more of the posterior, the back chain of muscles that feed into the low back, today specifically the hip and the hamstring and the calf, right? So let's get down to it. You're going to need maybe some kind of foam roller or some kind of, something to add a little bit of pressure into the low back. I like using this PVC pipe. This is not for everyone. This thing is really hard. There's not a lot of give, and there's a lot of not a lot of forgiveness in this thing. So I don't often recommend these to people who are just starting out with this. I've been doing soft tissue stuff and some of this self-care work for a number of years, and I've found that for me, I've really I've got my technique down. I know what areas not to push on and which areas feel really good. So for me, this kind of tool is really beneficial because it gives me just the right amount of pressure I need in those soft tissues. You may find that you need something much softer than this, and that's great. So please experiment with that. So the soft tissues we're going to be working on are the low back, some of the low back areas and the areas that kind of surround it, right? So if you just kind of imagine a real quick anatomy lesson for you, we have our rib cage here, and then you can kind of feel where the rib cage ends. There's really no bones around this waist area except for the vertebra in my back, my spinal cord, right? Everything else is just kind of soft tissue and organs in this area. You can even kind of dig your hand in a little bit. You'll notice I can feel the end of my ribs. And if I go a little bit further, there's just tissue. And then below that, there's my hip bone, right? So we want to work in that in-between area where that soft tissue sits, right? So get your little foam roller or whatever you got here. And you're going to want to avoid any of the bony areas that are kind of sticking out on your body and find that nice meaty spot, right? So I'm going to get nice and comfortable, use my elbow to kind of relax my weight. And then I'm just kind of sit down and see if I can find it. And yeah, there she is, right? I can kind of rock back and forth a little bit, maybe even take some breaths, and just kind of sink into it and let my body get used to the pressure. You may notice, the longer you hold on to these positions, the more and more your body kind of relaxes into it. So we want to give the body time to adjust and to relax into the pressure, right? It's not anything that you can hurry. And self-care stuff is, you want to take your time and enjoy it. Yeah, it's your time to take care of yourself, right? So, for me, this is great. You can even throw in a little bit of leg and stuff like that. You may find that you're not really getting much depth out of this. So what you can do in that case is you can keep your knee up like this, and then you take your other leg and you put it over your foot, your knee like this. And you'll notice it kind of opens up the hip. It separates the hip from the ribs and opens up that gap of soft tissue in there where you can really start getting in there, and you can start rolling around, kind of rolling back and forth on those muscles right next to the spine, not on the spine. Feels great for me, right? And then you can work on some of that soft tissue stuff on the side of your body just by kind of rolling forward a little bit. And it kind of digs into the obliques, some of the ab muscles. You got that QL muscle that's kind of right in there that helps us hike our hip. This is all stuff that's kind of, related to that low back tension, right? So spend a lot of time in this area. Breathe, enjoy, watch a show, spend a good couple of minutes in here, rock, find some nice juicy areas that you can get some relief from. Wow, it feels great. Feels awesome. Breathe, relax, enjoy, right? Take your time, right? After that, we're going to kind of come up. Oh boy, that feels great already. Yeah. So that's kind of like the direct work on that soft tissue area. For me, I don't often stretch the low back when I'm experiencing any kind of wave of low back pain, because often for me personally, my back pain usually results from using the low back way too much and not using my legs enough. My legs get stiff, so when I'm bending down to pick things up, I don't bend at the waist, I bend at the back. It's terrible. Sometimes I just have to kind of remind myself. Again, that's one of those habitual movement pattern issues that can crop up for you that can cause some of this low back pain stuff. We'll get into more of that in another time. So I don't often stretch the low back, but I like to press into it to get some relief on those muscles, right? So in order to do a little stretching, what I always do is I stretch the lower body, whether it's the quads, which are in front of your leg, or the hamstrings and the calves, which are in the back. And today, let's do a hamstring calf one, because a lot of people these days have a bit of a restriction in that area. And get your handy dandy band here. And make sure you're not doing anything like this, where you just put it on your foot and you're stretching, right? Because the minute you lose control of this thing, it whaps you right in the face. Doesn't feel good. You might even lose an eye, heaven forbid. So what I like to do is get this nice and secure. Whether you've got a straight one or a looped one, it's kind of the same thing. You can figure out a way to do this. Basically drape it over your ankle and then kind of pull it tight. And then you're going to take each end and wrap it around your foot, right? So it's nice and secure. It's not going anywhere, all right? Lay down on the floor. Get yourself nice and relaxed, right? Whether your leg is straight or not doesn't really matter to me. You just want to reintroduce some movement and some stretching in this posterior chain here. So what I like to do is I like to get a nice hold of the band, and I like to kind of rock back and forth. I kind of like to bring it up to where I'm feeling some tension and then come back down. This is kind of like almost like you're flossing, you know, you're flossing some of the tissues and the nerves that go down our leg. And you know, and you're just kind of getting the nervous system and the tissues used to moving again, right? Kind of stretching, get to know where your limit is, and hang out there a little bit. Maybe even do some rocking back and forth. This one's great. You can even open up a little bit, back and forth. Just kind of get a nice good stretch. Spend a lot of time here. Should be pain free. If you're feeling any pain in the back while you're doing this, you got to ease up a little bit. And if it's even still too much right here, then just move on to something else. You know, I don't recommend doing things that are causing you pain in the low back while you're doing them. It should all feel therapeutic and beneficial, right? You can even do something like a PNF stretch, which is a resisted stretch. So you bring yourself to a point where it feels like it's starting to stick a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my leg away from me, and I'm going to use the bands to resist that push. And I'm going to hold it for a count of, say, 5 or so. So I'm going to push my leg down this way, and I'm going to resist for 1, 2, 5, and then I'm going to relax. And you might notice that your leg wants to go a little bit further, right? This is kind of a body hack that a lot of people use, and it's a great kind of a way to send an inhibitory signal to the nervous system to tell the body basically that it's safe to go a little further. You can go a little further. It's no problem, right? So a pain-free stretch, hang out here for a couple of minutes while you're watching your show or listening to your podcast or whatever. And when you're ready to let it go, just let it go. And then if you're dealing with this low back pain stuff, definitely don't want to get up like this in a crunch. It just puts a lot of pressure on those low back muscles. So roll to your side and push yourself up. There you go. All right. So yeah, give those two things a try. You know, the soft tissue work on the low back and even in the sides of the body, and then get a stretch for that posterior chain to kind of get those muscles loosened up a little bit. And hopefully that will kind of, you know, help you out a little bit. Put that in your toolbox for the other things that you do that may help you out with that low back pain that you're experiencing. And then in the next couple of videos, we'll go over some of the other stuff like, you know, your relationship to pain, some of your biomechanic issues like your habitual movement patterns, or the patterns of your body while it's at rest is also a really big one, right? Yeah, and I'll show you a bunch of other cool like soft tissue and stretch stuff that you know, was really helpful for me, and hopefully it's helpful for you. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us today. Hope you got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed speaking to you and sharing this information, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.